The third indispensable element in building the new prosperity is closely related to creating new jobs and halting inflation. We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar. Now, this action will not win us any friends among the international money traders. But our primary concern is with the American workers and with fair competition around the world. To our friends abroad, including the many responsible members of the international banking community who are dedicated to stability in the flow of trade, I give this assurance. The United States has always been and will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner. In full cooperation with the International Monetary Fund and those who trade with us, we will press for the necessary reforms to set up an urgently needed new international monetary system. Stability and equal treatment is in everybody's best interest. I am determined that the American dollar must never again be a hostage in the hands of international speculators. I'm taking one further step to protect the dollar, to improve our balance of payments, and to increase jobs for Americans. As a temporary measure, I am today imposing an additional tax of 10% on goods imported into the United States. This is a better solution for international trade than direct controls on the amount of import. This import tax is a temporary action. It isn't directed against any other country. It's an action to make certain that American products will not be at a disadvantage because of unfair exchange rates. When the unfair treatment is ended, the import tax will end as well. As a result of these actions, the product of American labor will be more competitive, and the unfair edge that some of our foreign competition has will be removed. This is a major reason why our trade balance has eroded over the past 15 years.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this precedent on the first issuance of bonds in the context of Next Generation EU. We will start with a statement by the President of the European Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen, after which we will continue with a press conference by Commissioner Hahn on the issuance of the bonds. President, you have the floor.
Thank you very much and good evening. So today we reached a key milestone in the implementation of our recovery plan, Next Generation EU. Next Generation EU will provide in today's prices 800 billion euros to reshape our continent for decades ahead. To build a more sustainable, a more digital, and of course, a more resilient Europe. To fund Next Generation EU, we have agreed that the Commission will raise the necessary capital on the market. And today we have successfully conducted the first issuance operation for Next Generation EU. The Commission has just raised 20 billion euros in the capital markets by issuing a 10-year bond. This is the largest ever institutional bond issuance in Europe. And I'm very pleased that this attracted very strong interest by a wide range of investors. The bond was oversubscribed 7 times. And the bond was priced under very attractive terms. We are paying less than 0.1% interest on it. Today's deal confirms that Europe is attractive. By the end of this year, we expect to have issued around 100 billion in bonds and bills. This will enable us to fund all planned grants and loans for member states this year. And this shows that Next Generation EU is a huge opportunity for us. We need to invest this money well to make the best out of it. Now, how are we going to proceed? After very intense dialogue with national governments, we have completed our Commission's assessments of several national recovery and resilience plans. And from tomorrow on, I will travel to these member states. So this week, I will visit Portugal, Spain, Greece, Denmark, and Luxembourg. And I'm planning more trips in the following weeks. I want at this point to thank everyone for the incredible work done to produce these ambitious plans. But we all know it's good to have a plan, but this is only the start. Now we have to implement them. We have to launch the transformation of our economies, and we have to make sure that the plans are in line with European priorities. We know that on paper they are. Now we have to make sure that the implementation of these ambitious goals takes place. And we will be very vigilant to make sure that this implementation is rigorous. We want the best value for our economies, but we want also the best value for our citizens. And I'm very glad to see how Next Generation EU is now becoming a reality. Before I end, I really want to thank Commissioner Hahn, DGU, for the outstanding work you've done and the big success of today. So you can be really proud of it. And it's a great achievement. So good luck on your press conference and thanks.
Thank you very much, dear President. Thank you for this very kind final words. But it would only be possible, and it was only possible to achieve this by having an excellent team. There's our General Director, Gerd-Jan Koopman, my team in the cabinet, but in particular the team around Niall Cohen with his.
Okay, hi everyone. So let's go to the smart attendance and so that we don't forget to do that, and go to attendance. And here we are in week 9 and add smart attendance. And your number is 500. 500 is your smart attendance number. So let me go back to that at 500 and 500. Huh. Okay, stop share. Yeah, that's what I do. 500 and put that in the chat. Okay, so we are now in the 9th week of the semester, and let me call up the lesson plan so that we can all look at this together and make sure that you can share the screen, see the screen with me. So we go here. I think that's the shared. Maybe okay. Is that it? Let me see if I can find it here. So stop share, move the screen share, And I'm going to go like this. And I think I have too many things open. Let me close some of my files. I have too many files open here, obviously. And this is stop share like this. Go screen share. And there it is. Okay, so this is the topic for this week. To South Koreans, the EU will gain the legal competence to tax EU citizens and corporations within the lifetime of the average CUK citizen. So again, we're always trying to compare the European Union, say, with the United States. Will the central government of the European Union acquire the ability to impose taxes on directly on citizens of the European Union, rather than currently how it's funded, with most of the money coming to the European Union from money that's given by each national government in the member states to the European Union to spend based upon a formula, a standard formula that calculates how much money each government is to give to the European Union each year. And that works out to, well, before the pandemic, about 150 billion euros a year for the European Union to spend, with most of that money going to the poorer regions of the European Union, like Eastern Europe, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, and in the form of cohesion policies to develop those regions, but also agricultural policy, the common agricultural policy, which is maybe the most well-known budget policy of fiscal budget policy of the European Union. And then, of course, you know, if the European Union gets the ability to tax Marie as a European Union citizen, because she's Belgian, so she's a European Union citizen, or even me, although I don't live in the European Union because I'm also a European Union citizen, that would be looking like a federal government, more and more like a federal government. So this week you're reading Chapter 11, Public Policy and the Budget of the European Union. And again, you know, the book was finished at the beginning of the pandemic and went to the printer at the start of the pandemic. And since the book has been printed, the budget policy function of the European Union has changed a great deal. And as manifested in that Next Generation European Union, the coronavirus pandemic recovery program, and it's really shocking how much it has changed, and it's a revolutionary change. I mean, it's really important, as we've emphasized repeatedly in this class, that the European Union is now selling to international investors hundreds of billions of euro bonds to international investors to buy, to gather the funds in the form of loans. And when you sell the euro bonds, somebody buys the bond, and that's a loan. You have to pay that loan back. The European Union has to pay that loan back to the investor with interest. And they want to raise, well, the current estimate is 800 billion euros. About half of that 800 billion euros coming in the form of euro bonds that the European Union is selling to investors, and then gathering that money and giving it to Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria as a portion of that total fund, including $400 billion in grants from the European Central Bank that is going to be given to the European Union countries. And that's really important. That is, I mean, you would have to say it's revolutionary in terms of its implication regarding the development of the European Union as becoming in effect, a European central federal government. Because that's what states do. States issue bonds. In other words, states issue currencies, right? I mean, let's look. I don't have any euros with me, unfortunately. I used them up a long time ago, but here's the US dollar, or here's for a $10 US note, or here is a 10,000 won note that you're all familiar with. And here's the Korean money. That's what I have with me right now. And so what is this? What is this? This is a piece of paper. That's all it is. It's a piece of paper with ink and pictures on it. But we consider this to be valuable, that this is providing economic power, that this piece of paper is basically an agreement that you and I have that South Korea is real. South Korea is real. How do you know it's real? How do you know that South Korea is real as anything else is real, like Catholic University of Korea or Professor Ben? This is how you know South Korea is real. And there's relatively low inflation in South Korea, inflation, price inflation. So that tells you that there's confidence in believing in South Korea as real, which means there is confidence in believing that the South Korean authorities control the territory of what we call South Korea. That the South Korean authorities, in the form of not only, but represent the form of the government and the personnel in the government, like the president of South Korea and the National Assembly, that those authorities are effective, relatively effective, comparatively effective in controlling the resources on the sovereign territory of South Korea. And those resources include you, and they include me, and they include as well as material resources like water and natural resources like agriculture commodities and oil and gas and other minerals in the ground. And particularly also South Korea is able to control its people. That the South Korean authorities are able to mobilize its population. That the population as a whole will do what the South Korean authorities expect it to do or tell it to do. And the South Korean authorities will rely upon different mechanisms by which to persuade people to do what the South Korean authorities want them to do, or for the American authorities to persuade the American people to do what they want the American people to do. And they do it relatively effectively. So again, unfortunately, I don't have any euros with me, but to the extent to which this is stable, valuable currency reflects the world's belief that there is such a thing as South Korea, and there is such a thing as the United States. And we know they exist because the authorities of South Korea and the authorities of the United States are relatively effective in controlling the people and other resources on the territory of South Korea or on the sovereign territory of the United States. And if we accept that and believe that as investors, as citizens, as anybody, tourists, as professors, as students, then we reaffirm the existence of South Korea and United States as real entities that control and shape our reality. And we can make, of course, business investments on the expectation that when the United States government sells what we call treasury bonds, or for the European Union sells Euro bonds, that in 5 or 10 years, the United States will still be around, will still exist, and will pay back that loan plus the interest promised on the 10-year bond or the 30-year bond or the 5-year bond. And the same with the Euro bonds or the German Bunds, as they're called, or the British gilts. That's just the name of their bonds. So again, as we said earlier, the European Union, South Korea, Belgium, Russia, China, they only exist here. And not just in my brain, but in your brain as well. In Owen Tech's brain, in Maria's brain, in UJE's brain. You all believe that these exist. We all believe that these exist, and we act accordingly. And this is how you organize people, and this is how you organize the whole human race currently on the foundation primarily of sovereign states. Of course, we know some states are more effective, some authorities in some states are more effective than in other states. If there's terrible, terrible inflation comes to South Korea, that tells you, if there's terrible, terrible inflation comes to the United States, that tells you there's declining confidence in the ability of the American authorities to control and mobilize the resources that exist on the sovereign territory of the United States, including the people. So that's why I come back to what I was saying during our conference sessions. The fact that the European Union is now selling hundreds of billions of euro bonds to investors around the world tells you, and they're selling it at low interest rates. In other words, it's considered a safe, secure investment by those people who buy those bonds, those investors who purchase those bonds. It's considered safe. In other words, yeah, Europe exists. And I expect it's going to exist 5, 10, 20 years from now. It's going to exist forever, in effect. And that has only happened really in the last year, because the European Union was not really selling euro bonds. If you read in the book, I think it states in the book that the Germans in chapter 11 in the textbook, I'm looking at the textbook I have next door to me. I can find it in the notes. The Germans didn't want to sell euro bonds before the pandemic. Now they do. Angela Merkel, they've all agreed, and they're going forward full speed. So how do we make sense of this? How do we make sense of what this is? What we call money, currency. Well, you know, I've been working on this, and here is something that I just submitted. Well, didn't just submit. It's been accepted for publication, and it will come out if I can find it here. Let me see if I can find this here. So we go share screen. And I want to show you something that I have that I found a nice little statement in the economic literature regarding what money is. But before let me go back, step back a moment. Before World War II, countries of the world engaged in trade, and they tried to come up with stable values of their currency, that the dollar was always equal to more or less the same value regarding the British pound, or the French franc, or the German mark. And the way they tried to keep stable currency, relative currency values in terms of how much a dollar cost in German money, or in French money, or in British money, or how much German money cost in dollars, and so on, at the same currency values, was by pegging the value of their currency to gold and silver. To gold and silver. It's called the gold standard, right? That this somehow, 100 years ago, this represented some kind of value of gold. And that in theory, you could always exchange this piece of paper for some gold or silver or both, theoretically. Then after World War II, when the United States emerged as so big and economically powerful, the idea was to try to encourage international trade among the capitalist countries so that they could recover and develop after World War II and become stable and strong American allies against the Soviet Union, against communism, and also give more business opportunities to American companies that have all this money and they don't know what to do with it. So they want to invest it in Western Europe and in Japan. And so in the International Monetary Fund was set up in 1944 in Bretton Woods ski resort in New Hampshire, the Bretton Woods organizations, the International Monetary Fund, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, what we call the World Bank, and what is today the World Trade Organization, were first established at Bretton Woods, B-R-E-T-T-O-N, Bretton Woods, Woods, W-O-O-D-S. It's a ski resort in New Hampshire, in the United States. And the plan was to encourage trade and business, was that the dollar would become, in effect, the foundational currency for the world economy, for the capitalist economy at least. And that the dollar's value, $1 would be set to a certain amount of value in gold. So in theory, anybody, you, me, somebody in Chile or in Africa, if they had $1, they could, in theory, go to a bank, an American bank, and exchange that $1 for its value in gold. So the idea was to flood the world with American currency, and it'd be a stable, safe value that wouldn't change because it was always set to the value of gold. And the value of gold was set at a certain sum. It didn't change much. And this was agreed at Bretton Woods. Then, as the rest of the world economies recovered, including Belgium and Germany and France and Italy and Japan, there was more and more economic exporting from Germany and Japan to the United States, and this was causing changes in American value that were hard to maintain. The value of the dollar was being harder and harder to maintain because there was more and more demand for dollars as companies were selling products in the United States and getting dollars for their products, for German cars, for Japanese cars, for example, and then taking the money out of the United States, which was having an impact on the stability of the financial system. So in 1971, I was showing that 10 minutes before the start of the class, Richard Nixon was president of the United States, and he announced that the United States was leaving the gold standard. And I think I closed it, didn't I? Yes, I guess I did close it. So in 1971, Richard Nixon announced that the United States was no longer going to guarantee the value of the dollar in terms of gold. So let me see, I was showing this at the beginning of the class, and I'll just open it up again.
The third indispensable element.
Let me make sure that you can see that, because I don't know if you can necessarily, even though it says it's showing on my screen.
The new prosperity is closely related to creating new jobs and holding inflation.
So this is just, I'm not going to show it again, but this speech, he announces the United States is no longer going to agree to guarantee that anybody holding dollars can exchange those dollars for gold, for the metal gold. And it removed the gold standard. And the result is the value of this currency is based upon only on confidence that the American government is strong and stable, or the value of this currency is ultimately only based upon the confidence shared by you and me and the rest of the world that the South Korean government is strong and stable, and therefore is able to control the economy, control the economic resources in South Korea. And you are also an economic resource. I am an economic resource. We are all part of the resources of our states to which we are citizens. And this is called fiat currency, right? Let me see if you can, again, make sure you can see that. So this means a fiat currency. It's a currency that is created out of thin air by fiat. Fiat means by an act of the government. There's no, just by printing money, printing yuan or printing dollars, or now printing euros. And the only reason why this money is valuable is because you and I believe it's valuable. And we believe it's valuable because we believe in South Korea. We believe in the United States. We believe now in the European Union. We believe in it. And not just me, you too. And we all believe in it. And we all act and behave as if these things really exist. And if I believe they exist and you believe they exist, and we act as if they exist, they exist. So this is called fiat currency. And this is a discussion of fiat currency about basically creating modern economies is about creating stable, strong states. Because states mean the ability to control people and control the resources in that country. And if a government is able to control relatively effectively, or is perceived as being able to control relatively effectively the people and resources in that state, then that currency, that piece of money, becomes valuable. So this is a quote from an interesting article I found from a couple of years ago. And this article that's coming out soon this year, I think. To conceptualize money as a master signifier makes it possible to understand policy not as a neutral measure of abstract value, but as a measure of value relations resulting from political processes and social struggles. The state, economics, and monetary policy is a phenomenon of politics. It's a phenomenon of control. It's a phenomenon of power. Remember, power is defined as influence over the minds and actions of people. The value of money from fiat currency, the value of money derives from the capacity of a government to fulfill its assumed obligations. That is, its relative power capability. That's my conclusion. Money functions as a general promise of payment. The transition from a specific credit to a general promise to pay, however, implies that said promise is socially accepted and politically enforced. We all believe in South Korea, Belgium, United States, Europe. A promise to pay money, fiat currency, only becomes money if it's generally valid promise. In other words, if it can be passed around at will from person to person within a currency area, and if the person's holding said payment promise can use it to purchase any commodity available, provided that it covers the value of this asset in the form of a price. Money is a specific subset of credit. And he goes on here, sovereign debt crises such as the Eurozone emergency in 2010, 2012, involving Greece and other countries, right? Involve currency markets collectively evaluating the power capacity of the sovereign debtor to fulfill its general promise of payment to be less credible. That's my statement. My quote from an article is, money is preeminently a political category within the political economy of capitalism as a monetary production economy. And the reason why this is funny is because, well, not funny, it's interesting, is because there was a statement in May of this year, I think you can see that. Can you see that? Let me make sure you can see this article in the New York Times that came out. Everybody's been worried about the pandemic and the government's printing lots of money to deal with the pandemic. So here was an article that came out in the New York Times in May of this year. And this is one of the New York Times senior economics reporters. And so the European Union, the United States, they're punching, Belgium, South Korea, the governments are printing lots of money to stimulate the economy in response to the coronavirus pandemic. And this article goes on to highlight how, should we worry about inflation? I mean, is the government printing too much money that's just flooding the economy? And he goes on here, to understand why inflation is so worrying to so many people, you could look at price charts for lumber or used cars or New York strip steaks. There is no doubt that the prices of many of the things that people buy are rising at an uncomfortably rapid rate. But to really understand why there is a persistent long-term buzz of inflation concern, you have to wrestle with the ways in which money itself is fundamentally ephemeral. Ultimately, most money is a mere electronic entry in the ledger of a bank. It is worth only what it will buy. I mean, you know, I get paid by the university, right? I get paid once a month, and my money, my salary is electronically deposited in my Woori bank account. It is worth only what it will buy, and what it buys, what will buy changes all of the time. Or as the humor publication The Onion once wrote, money is just a symbolic, mutually shared illusion. It is. But it's an illusion in the belief that this represents the power of the South Korean authorities. And that this represents the power capability of the American authorities. And it's interesting that, you know, Neil Irwin, he's making this reference in May of this year to an Onion. Onion is a humor satire magazine that's really popular in the United States. And he's referring to this. Let me see if I can find that article here. This was the joke. The Onion is a satire of American news media. So here is what Neil Irwin was referring to from 11 years ago, 2010. This is a joke. This isn't real. This is satire. Washington, warning. The U.S. economy ceased to function this week after unexpected existential remarks by Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke shocked Americans into realizing that money is in fact just a meaningless and intangible social construct. That's what a fiat currency is. Now, it works because we all believe in the United States. You believe in the United States. You believe in South Korea. I believe in South Korea. The whole world believes in the United States. The whole world believes in South Korea. But they still exist only up here. So the question is, how do we construct the European Union up here? And are we constructing a European Union up here? And is it real? And evidently, the fact that people are willing to buy Eurobonds is an indicator that, yes, it is real. that the euro is real, and therefore the European euro bonds are real, and therefore the European Union, or at least the Eurozone, is real? I mean, that's the question, right? That there's only 19 member states of the European Union are in the Eurozone. So that means 8 are still not in it, because there's 27 member states of the euro, but only 19 of the 27 are in the Eurozone. Only 27 member states are in the European Union. Only 19 member states of the European Union are in the Eurozone. So, and so, you know, that your chapter for this week doesn't really cover this, because all of this has been going on the last 18 months. And so I wanted to ask you here to do a little participation. So let me ask you, please respond to the following statement. The euro is equal to the US dollar and the South Korean won as a shared illusion. And so that's the question. So let me go back to the stop share. And I think I did this under the polls this time. So please respond to the following statement. The EU, can you see the poll? The EU is sovereign. Hold it. No, sorry, did that wrong. Maybe I need to go to survey. Just a second. And we go to vote. Yes, here, okay, here it is. So let me divide you into 2 groups. So breakout rooms, 2 groups, and create and open all rooms. So let me see who's going to speak for each group. Heads, the top person. And it's tail. So UJE will speak for room 1, and Kang Tong-un will speak for room 2. Kang Tong-un, Maria, Owen Tech, join your groups, please. And come to a decision or agreement where your group fits on this scale. Close that. Do you agree that the euro is equal to the US dollar as a shared illusion? So there's 2 groups. Decide where you fit on the scale, each of the groups. That the euro is equal to the US dollar and the South Korean won as a shared illusion. And where am I on the scale? Heads, I'm 1, 2, 3. I'm heads. Heads, I'm 1. I'm tails. Heads, I'm 2. I'm heads, so I agree. Okay. Okay, so who's going to speak first? Room 1 or room 2? So let me flip a coin here. And it is room 1 will speak first. And that is UJE. UJE, where did your group decide how it responds to this statement?
Professor, can I speak next?
Okay, let's go then to Kang Tong-un.
Okay, so in my opinion, actually, I cannot understand exactly what a shared illusion is. But I think the money is affected by the people's value or culture and the state's economic level. So I think the euro is not equal to US dollar or South Korea.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, a shared illusion, that's a funny satirical way of highlighting the fact that basically, it's a question, if you go into philosophy and you study more philosophy, you're going to study ontology, which is the philosophy of being. How do you know that something exists? How do you know that the United States exists? How do you know that South Korea exists? I mean, you can't really see South Korea. You see people. If I look out, I'm looking out my window now. I see buildings. I see people. I don't see anything called South Korea, but it appears to exist. It's a construct, right? It's a construct. And so the question is, do people around the world, not just within European Union, but people around the world believe that the euro represents value. It represents value. And if it represents value, it means it represents the ability of state authorities in the Eurozone, among the 19 member states, that they are able to coordinate and organize and cooperate forever, that they cannot be broken apart, that a country will never leave the Eurozone once it joins the Eurozone because, well, for many reasons, it'd be too expensive, too costly, right? We saw, for example, what happened with Greece when Greece was in danger of leaving the European Union because it was going to default on its debts. And the concern was that this was going to disrupt the entire European Union and the whole world economy because lots of European banks would lose money, would go bankrupt because they've invested in Greek bonds and so on. And again, that belief that was that after that outcome of that Greek Eurozone debt crisis, that they seem to have committed the world to believing that the euro is based upon solid political foundations. You can't say never forever. I mean, you never say never, but the euro appears to be on solid political foundations that pretty much, as much as you can guarantee anything in this world, exists as an actor. That the euro, and I'm kind of slow about phrasing this because I keep having to distinguish between the Eurozone and the European Union, because Britain was part of the Eurozone, was not part of the Eurozone, it was part of the European Union, and then it left. But Britain never joined the Eurozone. And so still, only 19 of the 27 member states in the European Union are in the Eurozone. But it appears that international investors believe that any country that joins the Eurozone will never leave. It will never be able to leave. That includes Italy, Belgium, France, Germany, Slovakia, but not Czech Republic, because Czech Republic hasn't joined, not including Hungary or Poland, because they haven't joined the Eurozone yet. So can you imagine scenarios where that could be challenged, whereby that you could believe that the Eurozone member states would come under so much intense conflict among themselves between Germany and France and Italy and Croatia, and well, no, Croatia's not in yet, Slovenia, Slovakia, Spain, Belgium, that there'd be such a conflict that they would be unable to cooperate, coordinate, collaborate to maintain the value of the Eurozone, maintain the stability and functioning of the euro, because it's all based, it's based upon the willingness of those countries fundamentally founded on Germany to make this Eurozone work. And to make it work and to convince you and me that it works, not just make it work, but to convince you and me, the investors, that this is real. And it's stable, and it's strong, and it will be here 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Because we as investors can make long-term investment decisions on the basis of it. And I mean, this has all happened in the last 10 years since the financial crisis, with the sovereign debt crisis involving Greece, but also Spain and Ireland and Portugal, but mostly Greece. Since I've been here at Catholic University of Korea, this has happened. This has emerged just in 10 years. And so quickly now that your textbook is not up to date anymore. Because when you read the textbook, it focuses on, you know, the European Union budget process, and that's important. I mean, but before the pandemic, the only budget that the European Union had to spend was about 150 billion euros. That's it. That's not much. When you compare, for example, to what the US government spends, the US government spends thousands of billions of dollars every year. I think what, $2,500 billion that the US government spends. The European Union spends 150 billion. That's not small, but that's not that much compared to, I mean, what is, Marie, what is the national budget every year, annual budget for Belgium? It's got to be close to like $150 billion, something like that. I mean, we can look, what is the national budget Belgium? Just under Wikipedia, see what comes up here. It says here that Belgium's budget is actually, I think it's about it's $308 billion. The Belgian government spends $308 billion every year. So $100 billion, that's not 150 billion euros. That's not a lot of money compared to what we see government spending. See if I can show it to you here. Belgium. Yeah, I've got so many files open here. It's kind of difficult to yeah, so here it is, right? See, Belgium. It spends expenditures 308 billion. That's $308 billion. So that's about 275 billion euros for little Belgium. But then with the pandemic, we now see that the European Union is basically going to spend, through loans and printing money, 500 billion euros in total. That's a lot of money. Well, it's a lot more than 150 billion euros. And the world expects that if the European Union is going to take out loans from investors, they expect that that's a safe investment, that they'll buy those bonds and they will pay them back. You can see the difference between Belgium has a budget deficit, right? It takes in this amount of money. What did I just do there? It takes in about 251 billion dollars worth, I think it's, yeah, US dollars here in money, and then it spends almost $60 billion more than it takes in taxes. So let's go back to the breakout rooms. UJE, where does your group fit on this scale?
I think I don't know my answer is correct, but
Well, there is no correct answer. This is a matter just to get us to speak and talk about these things.
I think the euro needs to increase its value. This is because the euro stands out as a safe asset.
Okay. Okay.
Because the euro strengthen its status. So I think like that.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, but it's considered to be a safe investment, and you know it's considered secure and stable because it's very, very safe investment. In other words, the European Union only has to offer very low interest rates in order to get people to buy the euro bonds. So let me see here. I think I have it here. Yeah, so let me again go back to stop share and go back to share screen and show this. This came out when I was meeting with you last week. And now this is just from a couple days ago, 18 of October, that they're going to go even further beyond the next generation 800 billion euro pandemic recovery program. The European Central Bank is going to provide even more loans. They're going to go more and more, and they're going to do this year after year. I swear I read just a few weeks ago that Angela Merkel said, no, we're only going to do this once. We're going to raise 800 billion euros for the pandemic. We're only going to do it once. Now, throw that out, and they're going to do it again and again, according to this Financial Times report. It says Brussels aims to issue 80 billion euros of bonds for this fund this year and almost double that amount next year. Transforming EU itself into one of Europe's biggest bond issuers. Any extra support from the European Central Bank would be likely to cut the EU's funding costs and help to boost the status of the bloc's bonds as a regional benchmark, a role previously dominated by German bonds. So basically the European Union Central Bank, the European Union's bonds are going to replace the German bonds as the foundation upon which everybody else's bonds are evaluated, because this is considered to be the safest investment in the world. It's so safe that the return on the investment in terms of interest is so low because it's so safe, because everybody believes the German government is so strong and effective that you can't even, if you buy German bonds, you're going to lose money because the interest rate that you get on those German bonds is less than the rate of inflation. But often companies and banks, they have all this money and they have to do something with it, and they can't just keep it, they have to invest it. So they'll buy German bonds, even though if they hold on to those German bonds, they will lose money because the German interest rate is lower than the rate of inflation in Europe. And they're saying the European central banks, the European Union's bonds are going to become the new benchmark, not the German bonds. So they're going to evaluate Belgian bonds, Greek bonds, French bonds, Italian bonds, now relative to the European Union's bonds. And they're going to continue to help out Greece. One of them said the European Central Bank, one of the bankers, was working on ways to continue buying Greek government debt because Greece is just beginning to recover from that Brexit sovereign debt crisis of 10 years ago, which would otherwise be excluded by its rule against buying bonds with credit ratings below investment grade, another restriction lifted under the pandemic economic program, pandemic emergency purchase program. Yeah, that's what it's called. So they will do whatever it takes, the European authorities, at least the Eurozone authorities, to keep the Eurozone and the member states in the Eurozone forever. I mean, this is happening so fast. And, it's partly a response to Brexit. It's partly a response to Donald Trump. It's partly response to the rise of China, and it's partly response to the pandemic, all coming together. And we see at this time of major global crises that the European Union is moving exponentially faster forward on further deepening integration. And it's not really covered in your textbook because this is all happening since that textbook went to the publisher to be published. So, oh, we're almost out of time here. All right, so let me ask you to vote then on the question. So stop share, and we go to screen share and go here. And so please respond. The euro is equal to the US dollar and the South Korean won is a shared illusion. So vote, you have 15 seconds. Okay, and of course, you know that your midterm paper is due on Saturday, and I will just put a grade on it. I won't really have much comments. I'll just put a grade on it, and let me see if anybody signed up for the debate. I don't think anybody signed up for a debate. No, nobody signed up for the debate. So we'll do a class debate on Friday, and yeah.
Professor, where I can submit my midterm paper?
Oh, okay, thank you. I got to set up a website for that, don't I? Yeah, I got to set up an assignment slot for that. I forgot to do that. Okay, I'll do that. I'll set up an assignment slot where you can submit the final draft. Okay, thank you for reminding me.
Submit? Do I can? No.
Well, no, I mean, I need to set up a final draft submission assignment space on the cyber campus. So I'll do that this afternoon because after I'm done with my US history class here. Okay, so so thank you for reminding me for doing that. And you know, this is all aiming to get you excited about reading the chapter about the policymaking process in the European Union. But you know, the European Union, it responds to crises. And we have all these crises: Brexit, China, Trump, pandemic coming together, and the European Union responds by making the euro and the Eurozone a real global international actor on a global monetary level. And this is all happening as we are speaking right now in ways that, I mean, I'm going to write a paper on this, definitely. I mean, the European Union Studies Association meeting is in April or spring next year, and I'm gonna. Everybody's got to work on this because this is really important for the world, not just for Europe, but for the world in constructing this Eurozone. Okay, that's where we'll end today. Bye.